Hello and welcome back to Collider Jedi Council. I am Kristian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff, and I am joined by my illustrious, full, vibrant council, Mark 2D2. Hello, Mark.
Just us, buddy.
Just
you
us.
think that just Mark and Kristian can pull off a show by themselves? Has it ever happened in the past? I don't know.
It's debatable. Here is our show. It is the Jedi Council. If you guys are brand new to the show, well, first of all, thank you for joining us. Second of all, this show is everything Star Wars. We talk about the movies, we talk about the books, the video games, all of it, and it all relates back to how much we love Star Wars, and hopefully you love Star Wars too, or you're learning to love it, and that's why you're watching. So the first set of news, the way we do it, we break it down. It's all about the Star Wars movie news. That is everything that is going on in the world of the movie news. This could be episode 7, 8, 9. It could be the old movies. It could be the anthology movies, anything in the film universe. Mark, we have a lot of stuff kind of going on today. What's first?
We got a really cool story opening up. Our buddy Jeff Snyder from The Wrap reported on this week that Benicio Del Toro has the offer to play a villain in episode 8. That would be the one that Rian Johnson is directing. Now, multiple sources familiar with the casting process said that discussions are still in the very early stages, but Disney and Lucasfilm are very high on the Oscar-winning star of such movies as Traffic. So, yeah. Kristian, Benicio Del Toro, bad guy, episode 8. This screams awesome, right?
It screams interesting. I heard, and by the way, John couldn't be here today. He's feeling a little under the weather, but he'll be back next week. I heard him and Schnepp talking about it on, and Dennis, I believe, David, on the other day on Movie Talk about their thoughts on it. And David seemed to be the only one that was really enthused by it. I'm excited by it. I think that there's a lot of possibilities. John's point was the fact that Star Wars so far, at least again, hasn't relied on the big names to really sell the product, right? But the other thing that they have done is that so far, we haven't seen the movie yet, but it looks like they've cast right and they're fitting the talent around the roles. So I think that if Rian Johnson, who is also casted well, I loved what he did in Looper, had actually got a good performance. It looked like Bruce Willis cared.
Yeah, Bruce Willis didn't mail it in. That's an accomplishment in this day and age.
And it's not even a joke. That's 100% accurate. Yeah. And so... yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of what, because we don't know where the story goes in episode 7. We don't know what he would play, and I'm not too concerned about him being such a megastar that it's distracting, because he's recognizable for sure.
He ain't Adam Sandler, and he's not Will Smith. I think the fear that somebody might have is that if he's playing the bad guy in episode 8, then what happens to all these cool bad guys that we've seen so far in the episode 7 trailers? Are they going to pull a Darth Maul and just be one and done? And I don't think that's the case, even if he's in this.
I don't either, and I think we're going to get into that a little later, too. But I think that what we're going to learn, and we talked about this last week, is that once September hits, we're getting the journey to The Force Awakens, and that's everything that leads up, whatever books or games or whatever it is, we're going to find out what happened post-Return of the Jedi. And I think one of those is to show how big the Empire still is and how much... Look, let's jump to Rebels real quick. The Inquisitor, who's your buddy here today... that was your main villain in Rebels, right?
And a damn good one.
And we knew that Darth Vader and Tarkin and all those guys were out there. Tarkin showed up in the second half of Rebels. Vader showed up in 2. There are a lot of different villains running around out there. Now, we don't know if Snoke is the guy who, well, he's not doing the job for me, so I'm going to bring in someone else. Or maybe there's another general somewhere else or admiral somewhere else. So that doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, I mean, the storytelling aspect of how do you handle a villain being defeated at the end of a movie is an interesting question, because at the end of A New Hope, Darth Vader, he's just spinning off into a TIE fighter and you never see him again, but that was 1977. It's harder to pull that off in the modern era. To have a bad guy go through an entire trilogy unscathed is a pretty rare thing to have happen. Now, you could do like a Marvel universe where you have somebody lurking in the background like Thanos, who's pulling all the strings, but you never really see him in action until probably in Infinity War. Now here, it's hard for me to imagine that all of these bad guys are going to survive episode 7. Right. I think most of them will.
At least one will get crapped out.
One's got to bite it.
Right.
So
the thing with Del Toro though too is what and going off of John's point the other day was he didn't love his version of what's his face from The Collector, right, from Guardians.
He didn't have a lot to do either,
but he was a bit cartoony, so I understand the gripe. But if we get a Benicio Del Toro, and I know it's a different type of movie, but an acting performance in the vein of a Traffic or even Savages or something along those lines, to where he can play quiet but yet menacing, that intrigues me. Cartoony alien, that scares me. But I think just because, and I understand the comparison because Guardians of the Galaxy is a space opera. It's set in a similar type of universe, so I understand where you can compare that. But I don't think that's the version that they're going to cast. So I the more and more I think about it, I'm on board.
You put that guy in a cloak, he looks ominous. I'd be on board for that.
All right, what's next?
Well, I don't know. We'll get any details about that at D23, but in the official statement from Walt Disney Studios about what we're going to see at D23 is that there will be a presentation on Saturday that involves live action. There's going to be a bunch of special guests on hand to offer a look at all the upcoming stuff, including Alice Through the Looking Glass, The Jungle Book, Captain America Civil War, and Star Wars The Force Awakens, and much, much more. Is that in the Star Wars universe? And if it is, what else could we hear?
Much, much more is the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Because I still think you were at the panel at Comic-Con where J.J. Abrams said it looked like we're going to get a trailer in fall.
In the fall. Which is a vague term.
It could also be a tease to say, hey, I don't want to commit to D23. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm definitely not putting a stamp or a guarantee on the fact that we're going to get a trailer for Force Awakens. But if they're focusing on it, it would seem kind of silly not to show a trailer because you just did this panel at Comic-Con. What are you going to do? Show the same featurette? You either go big or go home at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the special guests that you would have for a Force Awakens panel.
Andy Serkis this time?
Maybe you get a new announcement and a new cast member comes out. I doubt you're going to have the big three come back if any of them show up. Right. Maybe Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. I don't think Harrison Ford is going to make the trip down to Anaheim after he just came down to Comic-Con and it was such a big to-do. So I think that you're going to get some sort of footage somewhere.
I think you have to. I mean, it's just...
But the much, much more could not even be Force Awakens. That could be some Rogue One stuff.
Yeah, and look, and I always go into the fact that Rogue One had, not Rogue One, but what was it? It was Guardians of the Galaxy had 2 weeks of filming.
Yeah.
They showed pretty much the same trailer that you got months later. Rogue One could probably do the same. I wouldn't be surprised if they show some stills from Rogue One. I think you have more of a shot of Rogue One showing stills and cast and announcing stuff because remember the thing that's going on with Rogue Nation with Mission Impossible. There's some kind of deal to where they can't promote very heavily. Rogue One can't promote until Rogue Nation is done. Well, guess what? Rogue Nation comes out next week. That'll be done. So by the time D23 rolls around in 2 or 3 weeks, we're in the thick of, okay, we can promote now. So I think that if you're going to get stuff from the anthology films, Ben Mendelsohn will be confirmed as cast.
Perhaps Forrest
Whitaker as well. They may announce that Han Solo thing, or maybe they announce who he is. I don't know. Maybe not, because you still have so much time to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. But they might talk more about, filling in the blanks. A film slate is something I would like to see. I don't think it's likely. And in Address to Council today, I'll talk more about the slate and what I think should come out of that slate. But
if there's something that you really wanted to see there, though, I mean, would it be the slate? Would you want to see more episode 7 footage, or would you want hints as to Rogue One?
I think I'd want to see a Rogue One teaser. If you told me you could either get a Force Awakens trailer in August, or a Rogue One teaser, I'm taking the teaser for Rogue One because I know that I'll get a trailer within a month or two before the movie comes out, and we're 4 months away. It seems like a lot, but it's not. Rogue One to me is becoming more and more intriguing the more I hear about it. The fact that you have this war element to it, that you have these guys from Zero Dark 30 and Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down, and just this is ultimately the prequel that we kind of wanted in a different way. So I'm so intrigued by this movie. I want to learn more about it because that teaser that might not even be in the movie that we saw at Celebration, it got chills.
Yeah, I just wanted more news on Disney's Bears. Maybe there's a sequel in the works. We'll find out at D23
Baloo
in a couple weeks. Next up is some photos that have surfaced that could possibly be of Rogue One's filming. Now, one of the ones shows a very familiar old Rebel base that's being constructed at the historic Shed 2 in England. And there's speculation that this could be for Rogue One. Christopher Nolan shot some scenes here at Inception, as well as all the Batman movies, and the final Harry Potter film used this for some big interior scenes as well. So, Kristian, when you look at these pictures, does this smell like Rogue One to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it looks
like the Rebel base feel
in Episode 4. You know, that's when they're all like just lurking around right before. It looks exactly like it. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. That this is a prequel to Episode 4, right before they get the plans. it's like little details like that to where they are just thrown into movies that you can base into entire films. Just when they talk about the how the plans were stolen and now there's an entire movie based on it. That's what's so rich about this universe. And to see that base like that, the way they're constructing it, it looks identical. Am I crazy?
Oh no, absolutely. And it's nice to know that they're actually building sets, that they're taking the cue from JJ, where we're going back to doing things the way that George Lucas did in the original trilogies, as opposed to the prequels, where you could green screen all this cool looking stuff.
Right,
but
you could have painted and make it look like the same base, but it's different when you're building it.
Let's just build it, and then we'll age it really quick, and then it'll look very lived in, like these are rebels that are planning to steal plans for La Death Star.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. Like I said, the more and more that I hear about Rogue One, the more and more I get excited. I won't say that I'm more excited about it than The Force Awakens, but I am certainly it will probably hit my number 1 or number 2 most anticipated for 2016.
I can't imagine there's going to be a movie that's coming out in 2016 that I want to see more than that.
2016 is stacked, but I have to agree with you.
Yeah. So next up is we may have now. By the way, all this news or a lot of this news comes from Star Wars 7 News.
Who collects it? They collect it from other sites.
They are like the Benicio Del Toro character in Guardians of the Galaxy. They collect all this stuff, then they put it online in one cool place. And emerging this week is a photo of Bullhead. He's an X-wing pilot from Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, we've all heard stuff about Poe Dameron so far, which is Oscar Isaac's character. This guy, look at this. This has a feel of like a Nia Nub, where it's a different species, but it's also we're fighting for the same cause, and somehow we can manage to communicate with each other. Okay, this looks cool to me.
It looks like a bullhead fish.
It certainly does.
It does, and I love it. I love it because, like you said, Nia Nub is one of those guys.
And an underrated character.
Some people hate him. I love Nia Nub.
I don't understand why they paired him and Lando together when they don't speak the same language. But it's a rebellion.
They're old bar buddies. But this particular character, I want to learn more about him. He looks like a sourpuss. I'm okay with that. Maybe this is how he smiles. I don't know. But
you hate faces though in general. You don't like people's faces. I think he looks like a pleasant guy. I think he looks cocky.
You think he looks pleasant?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know the definition of pleasant.
You should see his mom.
I don't know how you know his mom. But we're as far as this dude goes, I want to learn more about him. I love that he's a rebel pilot, and I love how many of the aliens fight for the rebellion. And I also think that's kind of going back to the legends of hasn't ever been established in new canon yet or in some of the movies, is that Palpatine had a strict no policy again with aliens. Certain aliens he let kind of hang around, like he had his one advisor that was an alien, but on everyone that you saw, whether they be clones or whether they be the recruited stormtroopers or whoever, the admirals, all humans. Yeah. And in Timothy Zahn's novel, which was Thrawn was one of the unique ones who was a blue-skinned alien, the red eyes. I want them to bring that back in, but it also says a lot that's why a lot of these aliens go and fight for the rebellion.
Oh, that's right. I mean, this guy looks like they had an open call at the Star Wars Cantina on Mos Eisley, and they're like, hey, anybody wants to fight for the rebellion, sign up. And this dude was first in line. I think he's going to play a crucial role.
I want him to be a badass, too, because like even when Nia Nub had like... Look at the way Akbar stood out. Right. Akbar stood out because he's a badass admiral.
It's a drop.
Yeah, and just had memorable lines and like I don't want to see him just kind of an alien. Like, I want to see him do stuff. I want to see him have a character. I want him. When you say Bullhead, you and I go back and remember when we were talking about Bullhead? Like, what was he going to be like? He's like one of the best characters of all time. I want to see one of those.
All time's a little bit of a stretch, but you're going to want to get that character in a toy form around Christmas. That could be the Iceman to Poe Dameron's Maverick. Absolutely, and that's probably some of the same stuff that Carrie Fisher wrote in her diary in 1976. As we transition to our next story, which is what it's about, is that Carrie Fisher is going to. She had a diary that she kept in 1976, which of course you're going to know is the year that they were filming a lot of Star Wars, and it was in post-production. So she's going to compile all of these journal entries into a book and release it. And I think that for Star Wars fans, it's going to be some interesting stuff in there.
Star Wars fans 18 and over. You are going to get stoned reading that thing. Like she was high most of the time. She had a couple of affairs here and there. I don't know if it's going to include any of it. This is from other things she's talked about in the past. I'm certainly going to read it. Carrie Fisher fascinates me because she's an interesting character. She's a Star Wars staple. She's had her demons in the past. She's battled through it. She comes from an illustrious family. She's done so much in her career in general, and she's certainly not a shy woman. She is outrageous.
She's funny, too.
She's funny. She's outrageous. And who wouldn't want to read what was going on with a 19-year-old or 18-year-old Carrie Fisher on the set of what was going to be one of the biggest movies of all time? I'm fascinated by that.
She might have hooked up with Bullhead's dad. We don't know. We need to see more about this.
What's a twist?
I mean, she's been very public about her substance abuse problems in the past and how a lot of that was the late 70s, early 80s. She was pounding around in her Blues Brothers days with guys like Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. Now, 1976 is a few years before that. So I said pound around.
I thought you said
she was pounding around.
You pounding around.
Get your mind out of the gutter, man.
You sound like pounding.
But I don't know how far she was into that stuff when she was making the first Star Wars, because obviously her star was elevated by that movie when it came out in 1977. So this, I think you're going to get. This is going to be like a young Stevie Nicks journal entries. The first few Fleetwood Mac albums, where you're an artist going on a journey, but there is also maybe this party side to you. What I hope doesn't happen with this is it gets too muckraky, where it's like, oh yeah, like Harrison Ford just wouldn't stop hitting on me, and Mark Hamill is trying to bang whoever. Like I don't need to hear all that
Saved
stuff.
by the Bell Diaries.
I want to hear a little bit of that stuff. I just don't want to hear a bunch of that stuff.
But what I did find out that these diaries are canon. Yeah. All right. What's the last on the story?
Okay. Adam Savage let a detail slip about a certain scene that you might see in The Force Awakens. He was being interviewed, and he mentioned that Phil Tippett, who is a special effects legend, he did a lot of the original trilogy stuff.
The old school technology.
And he was brought back by J.J. Abrams for that purpose, for one scene in particular, and he hinted that it might be a hearkening back to that famous chess scene on the Millennium Falcon in The Force, in A New Hope. In The Force Awakens, we might see that come back. The name of the game, I think, is Dejarik.
Yeah, we'll get
the name of the game, but it seems like we might have some Dejarik being played in The Force Awakens. This seems like the right move to make.
Yeah, and he let it slip. I mean, it was oops. Like when you watch the interview, he says, "Is it the chess?" And he's like, "Yes." Oh, I mean, no, yes. But it's
people get excited and they're talking about.
Is it the biggest spoiler in the world? No, I mean you kind of soon do. Remember back when all those rumors and spoilers were coming out, and then JJ, I guess it was first about the Millennium Falcon, and then JJ posted that picture. He posted it on, and you guys can correct me, the Jarek board. He posted it on the board and had the note, so people were already speculating that it was coming back. And it's these little things. It's not going to hold a crucial part of the movie, but it's going to make it feel like Star Wars.
It might. Look, all I'm going to say is that C-3PO and Chewbacca were playing that. And what did Han Solo say? Is that the Wookiees are prone to ripping arms out of sockets if they lose.
Right.
C-3PO has a red arm in The Force Awakens. Maybe something went down between him and Chewbacca under a heated game of Dejarik. We'll have to find out.
I think it's something a little bit bigger is going to happen there, too, because that arm is gone. Remember, because he got blown to smithereens in Empire, and they're still able to put it back. It got melted. Something happened.
All the Ugnaughts in the world.
Yeah, I think you'll find out that probably in one of the books. I think that's what they're going to do. I think that C-3PO arm, that thing, will have happened in either a book or a game.
Well, then you're going to have to be the person to tell me about that.
Okay, we'll do. That's it. That's it for the Star Wars movie news. Somewhat of a slower week this week in the world of the movie news, and I think we both agree that once mid-August, end of August comes, we're going to be just beaten down with the amount of news that comes out.
That D23 news rush that comes out, there's going to be a lot of casting info. And then going forward, once we get in September with all the canon coming out and the journey to The Force Awakens, there's going to be a lot of stuff every day. And I just hope that that nobody lets too important spoilers go, because you want some mystery to be surrounding The Force Awakens.
Well, speaking of the journey, it's our segment on the show that we like to call What's the Deal with Canon? It is everything going on in the world of Star Wars. This is the books, the games, the comic books, everything that ultimately relates back to the movie universe. We talk about it. Again, a bit slower on the side of canon this week. We're still, like we just said, in August and September. Once September comes, you talk about movie news is going to be a lot. There's going to be so much in the world of books I'm not gonna be able to leave my house because all I'm gonna be doing is reading the books and the comics because there's so much coming out. But this week we only have a couple things. What's the first?
Well, we got the Kanan issue number 4 is out, and this young man sitting to my right has read it. And Kanan, I know, is up there. It's competing with the Vader in the Star Wars comic for your favorite line so far out of Star Wars. Yeah. Kanan issue number 4, is this now your favorite line?
I still go to Vader, although I'm loving this storyline. It's what this comic has done so far. Greg Weisman, I believe, he wrote the comics, and he was also one of the showrunners in the beginning for Rebels. He knows this character so well, and you really learn about Kanan. And that's one of the cool things about being so invested in the new canon, is that Kanan is one of those guys now that I am really attached to, because I read A New Dawn before Rebels came out. And then after I saw Rebels, I already knew the character from New Dawn. Now I'm reading about him, and I learned so much about him, like kind of as he's being developed and shown to everyone. So I'm really liking this character. People seem to be responding to him. We talked about it for a celebration. How many people were dressed up as Kanan?
Yeah, he's a big cosplay character too. Yeah. What's the timeline that we're looking at with this story?
The first issue takes place during Order 66.
Okay,
it goes down. I mean, the beginning,
so pre-Rebels.
Yeah, well, the beginning of the first issue, you see him with Hera and the crew in the Ghost, and he's kind of remembering, and then that takes us back into Order 66. But you learn, like going back in A New Dawn, we just see him. He's basically like a Han Solo type character, where he's just this smuggler and just has abandoned the Jedi ways, and he's just the Force he wants nothing to do with it. This comic is showing how he got there, and he's running around with this dude who ultimately becomes his friend. And something that happened in the last issue, in issue 3, they overcome that. They work together a lot, and then you see what he's got to go to in the philosophy and the mindset, where it starts to develop. And he's got these clone troopers that are after him because of Order 66. Like, they're hunting down the Jedi. The Palpatine's still after him, so he's got these 2 clone troopers who are hunting him down.
So at the time of Order 66, he had already given up on the Jedi, but because he was one of them at one point, or was a practicing Jedi, he was the threat to be wiped out. Yeah. And so they're going to send people after him. So he's just fighting for survival.
At this point, like when he first on the run, he's still a Jedi, but then he realizes that, at this point he's abandoned it. It is that survival mode kicked in, because that's what you learn in New Dawn and in Rebels, is how, because when you see him in Rebels, he's a good leader, and he's helping out, and he's teaching Ezra, and there's moments to where I'm not ready for this, and then by season 2 he's better. But you see why the dude's damaged. He's got his master that's been killed off. He's running with smugglers. He's learned how to survive. So I really enjoy the development of this series so far. I don't know how long it's going to last for. I don't know where they're developing it until. I don't know. I don't think it's a limited run. I think it goes for a little while. I might be wrong, but I really like what I'm reading so far in Kanan. It's one that I would suggest to you guys first of all, if you're just getting into Rebels and you want to learn more about Kanan, not only this, you should read New Dawn, because it is a nice insight to who Kanan is, especially if you're a fan of him. But even if you're not a fan, you haven't really gotten into Rebels yet, I'd suggest picking this up if you're a comics fan, because you'll learn a lot more about who this guy is.
And we can speculate just for a minute, because we don't know any spoilers about the fate of Kanan or Ezra. You reading this comic and getting to know this guy a little bit more, I've always said that I just don't know that Kanan, he just seems too preoccupied with his own stuff going on to be able to train a Jedi. We've seen people who are more clear-headed, like Obi-Wan, try to train Jedi and fail. Right. Where do you think his character is going, and how is that going to affect Ezra's fate?
I think that we're going to see it Obi-Wan, Anakin type situation
where Ezra goes to the dark side.
Yeah, they teased it too much in season 1 to where he tapped into the dark side. I think something's going to happen there. Now, whether or not he ultimately becomes Snoke, I don't know. It's a theory that's been floating out there. Possible, maybe, but I don't necessarily think so. I think Ezra will wind up dying. I wouldn't even be surprised if Kanan has to kill him and goes off in hiding, and maybe he becomes Max von Sydow. Who knows? Or maybe Kanan bites the dust too. Who knows? But
dark stuff for Disney XD, man.
Well, look what's happened so far. I mean, look at that first premiere with Vader. They're not afraid to go dark, and I applaud them for this, because that was a concern for a lot of people with Rebels was that, oh, it's on Disney XD, it's going to be kiddie. I would argue with a lot of people that there are moments in Rebels, especially episode 1 of season 2, that movie, that rival some of the darkness in the Clone Wars.
It's going to be hard to watch that scene happen if he does have to kill Ezra, and then the next thing you see is a Hungry Hungry Hippos commercial. It's going to be a weird juxtaposition, but this show is really good, and if you're a Star Wars fan, if you haven't seen Rebels yet, you need to get on board. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and check out issue 4 of Kanan. And the other thing, I think that the next comic to come out, I believe, is Star Wars issue 7. Now that, I know a lot of people are wondering, oh, we're going to finally find out like the conclusion to Han Solo and his wife. I think they're teasing that for a little bit, which I'm okay with, because the next issue is all about Obi-Wan and getting back into that time period about Obi-Wan.
Right, and it's a good look. It's the Han Solo wife thing. It's a great way to sell comics. It's a great way to sell comics.
Don't you want to know what happened?
Yes.
I don't want him to.
I have concerns.
I have major concerns.
They need to be answered. I need to read that issue.
And that's why it was smart for them to do this. Yeah. So maybe it's all a dream, like Dallas. All right, let's. What's next?
Well, a game that I know is very near and dear to your heart, maybe not some of your ex-girlfriends so much, is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. It is back, Kristian. It was originally on Xbox, and now it's being resuscitated on Mac, PC, and Linux. It's one of your favorite games of all time. I know you love playing this game. Are you excited that now people, maybe of a new generation, can experience this game?
I didn't love this one.
I thought this was yours.
The first one. Knights of the Republic, I loved. I liked the second one. But BioWare did the first one, and the second one, you could feel BioWare missing. You feel the story missing a bit. It's still really cool that they're bringing it back and letting people who were fans of the game play it again and get back into it. What I think this says is, because with the Knights, not Knights, but with the Old Republic thing that they showed at E3, and then with this coming out, I think that this is Lucasfilm and Disney getting us ready for some kind of announcement eventually. It could be a year from now, that the Old Republic is still, keep it in your consciousness. It's going to be here, and it's going to be part of canon eventually.
And it's also, I think it's inevitable that eventually it will be part of canon, but it also could be them testing the waters. It's almost like they're focus grouping this. They want to see if this creates a ripple in the Force, if people want to play this game again, or they got really hyped up from seeing that trailer at E3 that, hey, it is viable to make an entire feature film based on this lore. So it may just, so if you are a fan of that and you want to see that movie get made, you might want to check out this reissue.
Yeah, and I also think that Uprising is going to say a lot. I know it's not in the Old Republic era, it's post Jedi actually, but I think that that's going to say a lot because it is an RPG and it is a mobile game as well too. But I think that the RPG and to see the success of that game, I think that's going to bode well for Old Republic, because that game's going to do well.
Right.
Just the trailers alone on Uprising, because I want to learn more about who those characters are, and now that I get to play, like, Uprising is essentially the first thing you're going to get in the
Journey to the Force Awakens once September hits. Right.
Because you're going to be able to play in the Rebellion, or even as this new admiral and this general, and you're going to learn more about these people in the books. I'm sure that characters in Uprising are going to pop up in the books, which will be kind of cool. The same way that some of the characters in A New Dawn are showing up in Aftermath. Like, this is what, to me, squashes some of the concerns I had about the new canon, was where they're just going to throw some characters in there and then we'd never hear from them ever again. But they're using characters in a certain time period, bringing them back in another time period, and saying, no, we're very aware that these are arcs that we're telling of these people. And I think that's going to be the same for Uprising into the books and eventually into the movies.
Right. Now, if we're going all-time Star Wars video games, before Battlefront comes out and before Uprising comes out, the greatest one, in your opinion, is Knights of the Old Republic, the first one?
You can't touch that game.
Wow. Well,
it's the best.
I'm a super Star Wars Nintendo kind of guy. And I like Dark Forces. Remember that game? That was pretty sweet.
All great, but I still hold to this. Next to Empire Strikes Back, the Knights of the Old Republic story is my favorite story, second favorite Star Wars.
Wow.
Story. Yeah.
Wow.
And I know Dennis feels the same way.
Strong words.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's just, it was a twist. It felt like it, and you know what it was? It came out in a time when it was right around the time that I think Attack of the Clones had just come out, and everybody's just like, ugh. And then you play this game, and you're like, right. This is Star Wars, and the music and the lore, and even though it was thousands of years beforehand, and the story, and then ultimately what the twist was, and you're like, your mind is blown from playing it, and you're involved in it. So it was just there was just something like that type of RPG in the Star Wars universe hadn't happened, and like the team at BioWare and Drew Karpyshyn did a fantastic job of really turning that into one of the most memorable and my favorite Star Wars game of all time.
All right, well, let's not get off on and address the council rant about that, unless you want to.
Yeah, it is time. Good transition. It is Address the Council. Haven't done this in a little bit. What we do on Address the Council is one of the many members on the council today, will look right at you guys into the camera and talk to you guys about something that we wanted to be heard. And you guys get to address it in the comments of what you think. This week, I'm going to be addressing everybody at home, and I have brought this up before in conversation here, but I want to bring it to you guys why I think Star Wars movies need to start having 2 movies per year, and I think it needs to start in 2017. Now, I know that the first initial concern with that is, it's too much. It's too much Star Wars. It's oversaturation. We don't need it. But I have to ask you to look at it this way, not just because I'm an uber Star Wars fan talking to you on a Star Wars show. I am talking to you as someone to look at what Marvel has done. Look at the comic book genre, right? You have DC, you have Marvel. Starting next year, you will probably have between 4 to 5 comic book movies per year. Now, some people might think that that's oversaturation, and that's fine. But also realize that in the case of Marvel has these movies, even if it's Guardians of the Galaxy, still happens in the same timeline as everything else. Mm-hmm. So if it's Iron Man coming out, or you have Civil War, and then Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, they all come out in the same time, give or take a year, 2 years, months. Star Wars is such a rich history, as such a rich universe spawning off. We were just talking about the Old Republic, thousands of years. A brand new Star Wars trilogy in the Old Republic could be a movie that came out every 2 years, an Old Republic trilogy, into where then you would have to fill in the anthology films. The Star Wars chapters that we have now, 7, 8, and 9. Once you have an anthology film, say like a Boba Fett movie, and let's say the Boba Fett movie is such a monster hit that they want to make 3 of them, you are now pushing yourself back into a corner now. It's because we have to wait so long. If you're only doing 1 a year, you have to wait until you get another anthology film. Because if you have the chapter and then Boba Fett 1, then Boba Fett 2, and then Boba Fett 3, but you don't have time to do an Old Republic trilogy. What Disney has done and Lucasfilm has done well, I think, and it was done by accident, was by placing Episode 7 in December. They're going to dominate the box office in December because there's no blockbusters and there's no movie that's ever made $100 million opening weekend. That's going to change. They're going to own that. They should own it from now on. They should own it in May like they do, and they're coming back with Episode 8 in May, and they should have an anthology film in December. If you do that, and you can set up this rich universe that spans over countless amounts of years, you can do Bounty Hunter movies, you can do Rebellion movies, you can do Old Republic movies, you can do whatever you wanted to do. There's so much to do. I get the oversaturation, but the concern, but think about how rich and how much history there is behind Star Wars.
That was very good, by the way.
Thank you.
I learned a lot.
Yes.
You're a very impressive speaker.
Thank you.
What I would counter that with, and I agree with you for the most part,
Can
because I love watching
off?
Star Wars movies, is that Marvel seems to have a finite end to these stories they're telling. I know that it's going to be the end of Phase 3,
right.
Okay? But Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, that seems to be the end of the Avengers as far as we know them. And then you might get Inhumans or something else carrying on the Marvel brand. But Star Wars doesn't seem to have that end because there's an infinite amount of stories you can tell. Now, the Skywalker trilogy that we're getting, 7, 8, and 9, that does have an end. So I think that while you're telling 7, 8, and 9, you can throw as many anthology films in there in the same year as you want because we get that storyline, then we also get all these other independent films. Once we no longer have, if there isn't an episode 10, 11, or 12, if there isn't a story to continue there, then I think that you probably go back to 1 a year.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's why I would say no to that is because look what they did in 4, 5, and 6, right? Mm-hmm. And there's talk of young Lando, there's talk of young Han, there's talk of Boba Fett, right? You haven't seen 7, 8, 9 yet. Benicio Del Toro's character could become the next Boba Fett. And then they want to do a spin-off character of that guy. And then there's so much new history that we haven't seen yet that you might want to get spin-off movies from those guys and new lore and just something that's mentioned. Maybe Max von Sydow's character, who's no one that we've ever heard of before, mentioned like the Jaws scene. Like the Jaws scene. I mentioned this big event that happened.
Yeah.
And then you want to hear about that. Like JJ and Kasdan come up with this story that they know that they can just mention, but that's going to be a spin-off eventually. There's going to be so much material to do, and they will do 10, 11, and 12. That'll
you got to think there's going to be enough good story material in 7, 8, and 9 that they can build some sort of future film franchise off of that.
And it was always Lucas's idea to do 12.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this too, because I'd be on board for if you got a great Star Wars movie every December, and then you get another one to look forward to in the summertime. And we had this question, it was either on Jedi Council or Movie Talk. I can't remember who asked it, but it was, should there be post-credit scenes in the movies? And if there's one in December and one every summer, it would be kind of cool to have a little tease as to what's coming up next for Star Wars fans. Do you think that should be a thing that happens?
No, just because let's, again, go to Old Republic and just throw in a random scene that happened from thousands of years ago. Would I complain about it? No. But I mean...
You'll stay and watch it.
Yeah, but it's not necessary. It's not necessarily the same.
No,
and it's Marvel's thing at this point. So everybody's doing it, and that's fine.
They're all owned by the mouse. So.
And I don't mind. I wouldn't mind it if there's a post-credit scene. That's fine. And if there's a post-credit scene at the end of Force Awakens that teases what Episode 8 is going to be, or even there's a little thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think that I can speak for both of us that when we're seeing that movie for the first time, we're going to wait until the end credits. Yeah. If for nothing else, just the music's going to be great.
Yeah,
so
that's true. All right, guys. How about you? What do you think? Do you think that I'm out of my mind, that they only should do one movie per year for as long as they do Star Wars movies? Or do you think eventually they should be able to get into 2 movies if the audience wants it? Comment, tell us what you think, please, and have a discussion with one another. Very curious, always read your thoughts. And make sure you like this video, by the way. Certainly helps us and lets people know about the show. And speaking of you guys and letting your voice be heard, that's where we collect your tweets, and we're going to read some of them out today. Mark, what is in the Twitter sphere today?
From the hashtags Collider Jedi Council. First, we get @CasualMovieFan. Do you think by announcing a new villain for Star Wars 8, Kylo Ren and Captain Phasma might get Darth Mauled at the end of 7? This is what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Do you think that one of those 2 characters, let's not just say any bad guy, let's say either Phasma or Ren, are they both surviving this movie?
Yes.
They're both going to survive?
Yes. I think that they will survive because I don't think you can kill off Gwendolyn Christie, who is your first female stormtrooper, and they make such a big deal about her being this big female lead villain, and she's, but I wouldn't be surprised if she died. I wouldn't be surprised because you still have Daisy Ridley. You still have these other villains out there as well, too. You have Donald Gleason, who I still don't think is bad. But you have all these people out there, so I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them was going to die. It would be her. There's no way Kylo Ren dies.
I think the odds, just from even looking at the names before I saw the characters, Captain Phasma, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren sounds like the Jedi. Captain Phasma sounds like the badass, and I think that the badass probably gets taken out first.
Yeah.
So, but Gwendolyn Christie seems to have such a ball playing this role, and seeing her at Comic-Con, like she is so excited to be in this universe. It's hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't want her for more than one picture, but we'll have to wait and see the movie.
Yeah, there might be a character also that we don't know that might go out. We don't know everyone that's in this thing.
But I don't think Snoke's going out either.
Nah,
Snoke ain't going out.
Nah, Luke's taking Snoke out in Episode 9.
Okay, you heard it here
first.
That's
my prediction.
Okay, next up we have @Brendan McGill writes, you think there will be only one Episode 7 trailer and that's it? TV spots, no need for more.
TV spots aside.
No need for more.
I understand where you don't think we would need more, and I get it. I think you'll probably get 2 trailers. I actually agree with Brendan here. I think that we should you just only need to see one. You really do. I mean, the TV spots and the same trailer again. Once I like to know what the story is a little bit. I don't need full details. I don't need the whole story. Don't southpaw me. But I would like. But I
please
would,
don't southpaw
me. But I definitely want to know a little more, and I think you're gonna get that. That's why I'm conflicted with this D23 thing.
This D23 thing is going to determine my answer because if they show us footage if they show us a new trailer at D23. I think that you'll see another trailer before, and I would actually prefer that they do this, is if they show us a trailer D23, that's great. Don't show anybody else that trailer until late September, October. That's your last trailer.
All these leaks and stuff that happened just recently, that trailer's going out the second.
Whatever footage they show, you think is going to be going online immediately. Yeah, so if we get a new trailer, I can't imagine that's going to be the last trailer then. I would prefer it to be that, and then, your TV spots, but...
Here's the reason it's a possibility that you get the trailer at D23 is because the journey to Force Awakens kind of starts at the end of August with Uprising, and then really avalanche once September hits. What a way to start it. Then by the trailer and going, well, this is the story, this is the universe that we live in now. And then you go, whoa, how do we get there? Well, funny you should ask. Play this game. Funny you should ask. Read that book. That's that story that you saw in that trailer that was released in August. This is how you get there from this, from that. You know, it's like it's a good way to get everybody juiced up because you saw the story first, as opposed to releasing the comics, releasing the books, and then releasing the trailer. It almost seems like a little counterproductive, as where you throw out first, you throw out, that's it. That's what the story's about. How do we get there? Well, I don't know. How do we get there? Well, read that comic.
As a fan going to D23, I would love to walk into that arena and see stormtroopers guarding it because I know they're taking the security seriously. That they're going to show us a trailer that nobody else is going to see for a while. If I wasn't going to D23, I'd say show the trailer and release it to everybody else as well. Right. And then we'll have to see what happens in the fall.
All right. Next one.
At Just R. Beardsley writes, do you think Kanan and Ezra will die since Yoda says Luke is the last Jedi on his deathbed?
We've kind of answered everybody's questions already before we even got to the tweets.
That's how good we are. We can see the future.
Yeah, I think Kanan has a better chance of surviving this series than Ezra does. I don't think Ezra has any chance of making it out unless he somehow becomes Snoke. That's the only way I see him making it out because, from to become an Inquisitor, if he becomes an Inquisitor, I think Kanan will probably kill him. It's too complicated, and story-wise, if you keep him around, it's like, where the hell was he during the original trilogy? How come we didn't hear or see of him? They both went on the run together. It's like, but Kanan, because even going back to the comic book, we know that he is good on going on the run. I wouldn't be surprised if Kanan was the only one who survives and then goes on the run again.
And so Yoda not being aware that there's another Jedi out there, that's not beyond the realm of possibility that a Jedi is able to hide from another Jedi, even one as great as Yoda. So Yoda maybe just be saying, look, as far as I know, you're the last Jedi, and I'm about to die, so I had to say it. Like, I think there could be other Jedi that are rogues out there hiding out somewhere. I think Ezra and Kanan are both going to have bit it by that point, though. I think they're gone.
Yeah, I agree. What's next?
At Ryan Sedgwick writes, what Old Republic story would you like to see made into a movie?
Oh, no question whatsoever. And this goes back to my address to council of why, if you're putting together these movies in this timeline, then you jump back into the Old Republic. The Darth Bane trilogy should be made. The Darth Bane trilogy, again, I brought up Drew Karpyshyn before, who was instrumental in creating Darth Revan and the lore behind Old Republic, wrote a great trilogy of books, the Darth Bane trilogy. And even though Darth Bane is canon now, because he was introduced in the Clone Wars, Drew went into his history and how the Rule of Two came about, and his apprentice and Darzana and all of these things, and the way it was the first time you follow a Sith. The bad guy is it's like Deadpool almost, but Deadpool still does good things here and there. But this is like a bad evil dude.
But it's told from his perspective.
Yeah, and it's a trilogy.
And that's not canon though. The character is canon, but the storyline that you're talking about isn't canon yet.
No, I don't know if it will be, because it looks like they have a different direction for Bane. But I would like to see what the new storyline and history for Bane is, and I think that if they do go ahead with a movie, you have to get Drew Karpyshyn involved, because this guy knows the ins and outs of who Darth Bane is. He's a fascinating character. Canon or not canon, the Darth Bane trilogy is something that all of you should read.
It's on my audiobook download list right now.
Is that true?
No, it's not. Okay. Ryan Sipowicz writes, rumor is Aaron Paul could play the young Han Solo. I'm not sure he fits the role. What do you guys think?
You're correct, sir. I don't think he fits the role either. I like Han Solo. Yeah, I like Han Solo.
I'm a fan too.
I'm a fan. I like Aaron Paul a lot, but I'm already. They haven't even started yet. But I don't need to see the tweets. I shot first, bitch. I don't need to see it, and that's what's going to happen every single time.
Tweets aside, you don't think the guy has the same ability?
It's not chops.
To pull it off,
it's not chops.
It's not chops.
I think that he's a good actor. I think that he's a really good actor, and I think that he would fit into the Star Wars universe well, but not as Han Solo. I think that I always forget the kid's name from Kingsman, Tags and Egort.
Ansel, Egort.
Definitely didn't get it right.
That.
But I think that kid would be really good. If Anthony Gribber proves that he has some chops, maybe. But maybe not. But to me, Aaron Paul isn't the guy to play Han Solo. I could certainly see him being like a friend to Han Solo, or being in that smuggler world for sure. I'd love to see Aaron Paul in the Star Wars universe just not Han.
Yeah, there's something about, and you don't need to look like Harrison Ford exactly to play Han Solo in my universe, but there's something about Aaron Paul's eyes, is that when he's an actor, what he uses in his eyes so well is fear. Is he always looks like he's anticipating something. Like there's like a live cobra just off camera about to attack him, and he's good at that. And that's a great quality to have as an actor, but that's not what Harrison Ford brings to the table. He brings a cool, calmer, gunslinger kind of demeanor that I think that that and Aaron Paul's character are two different. It's not to say Aaron Paul wouldn't make a credible Han Solo. I just don't think going forward in the universe he's the right choice to play Han Solo. He'd be great to see in Star Wars in some capacity, though.
Look, there's another side to this coin, is that if you have, I mean, so we know that who's directing the Solo movie is that
is Miller and Lord.
Miller and Lord are directing this movie. Okay, so we know that these guys so far have a pretty reputable film history, and that what they've done, they're kicking ass.
And with the Kasdan's writing, helping them write it too.
With Kasdan writing, and then depending on who you put in there, Chewie's going to be in there somehow, but whoever the villain might be, whether it's Boba Fett or whoever it is, you don't necessarily need a star. Look, if they find someone, maybe there's someone out there that is Han Solo. I mean, Harrison Ford was unknown. Now, this is the role of Harrison Ford was also, the role of Han Solo was also unknown back then. It is not anymore. But that's not to say that there's not some guy out there right now.
Probably working in a Home Depot.
Seriously, watching this show. 21, and put the show down and get back to the drill. 21 years old or whatever he is, and he is getting ready for this audition. He nails it, and that's your new Han Solo. He's got the chops. He has that charm that you were talking about. That's possible. And they certainly went after that with Daisy Ridley, but she's also surrounded by some big characters, and that's a lot to put on a brand new actor's shoulders, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities, and I don't think they should look past it.
Right, so all you actors out there, from us at Jedi Council, from the bottom of our hearts, if you get an audition to play a role in a Star Wars universe, don't suck as Han Solo.
Seriously.
Please don't suck.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Or don't tweet us. Last one.
Speaking of Han Solo Jr., right? Do you think we will get to see Cham in the future of Star Wars Rebels, maybe in a cameo?
Now, I'm doing this because I want to teach, not to embarrass. Do you know who Cham is?
Yes.
Who?
He is a smuggler buddy of Jabba's, and him and Salacious Crumb went to high school together, if I'm not mistaken.
This is kind of like Night Falls. No, this is incorrect. Cham Sudala is Hera's father. And this is, I'm also telling everybody this as well too. Cham, and he is also the protagonist in Lords of the Sith.
There you go.
And he was big in the Clone Wars, and it's revealed that he was Hera's dad. He is the guy who is responsible for really starting the first wave of the rebellion.
So he's one of the godfathers that was getting the message out there.
Yeah, he's like, stand up. He was going after in Lords of the Sith. He's the one that's leading the charge to assassinate Vader and Palpatine. Like if he would have gotten the job done, Cham.
Yeah, how'd that go for you?
So, but I do think that we'll see him in something, because the question is just, will we see him in the future of Star Wars? I don't know if you're necessarily going to see him in Rebels.
Well, in a cameo, I mean, I don't know what the timeline is, but I don't know if he's still alive. But there might be a flashback, or them telling them referencing the character, perhaps.
A reference to the character, I think, is absolutely possible. A flashback, more likely, because I forget what episode it was in Rebels, but Hera kind of alluded to the fact that that she's had some tragedies in the past, and I would assume that one of them would be her dad. And her dad, I think that a flashback of showing more of the history of her and why she got to be doing and be so involved and invested as she is, would probably lead back to Cham. So I think you're right. I think that if you're going to do I think a flashback would probably be the way to go.
You're sure that's who Cham is? He didn't go to Tatooine High?
No, but it sounds like an incredible anthology film that should come out 2 in a year. All right, that's it. That's our episode of Jedi Council this week. It was a short one, but it was a good one. We had a lot of cool stuff. Mark, thank you so much. Mark2D2, where can they find you?
Yeah, online, Twitter and Instagram at 5150Ellis.
Nice.
That's all I got.
I like it. For me, Darth Harloff, you can find me on both Instagram and Twitter at Kristian Harloff. Please keep submitting your questions and any Star Wars talk you ever have, please, on Twitter. I'll try to answer as much as I can. And then make sure that you do the hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Get your questions on. Please submit them all through the week, because we take them, we put them on for next week. Get your question on the air. And the main thing for you guys, too, all your Star Wars fans out there that don't know about this show, share it. Click like. Let people know that you guys are watching Jedi Council and that they should be too. And until next week, may the Force be with you.